Hello, my name is Gemma, and this is your podcast, Cosmic Woman. Make yourself feel right at home. Allow your heart to expand and your mind to be at peace. We are all one. That's why this is an invitation to listen with your whole being, as if it was you telling your own narrative. Make each episode an opportunity to ask yourself, who am I being as I listen? I bring this podcast to you with so much love and devotion. That love that is you. The evolution of consciousness has been my life's journey, my vision for humanity, my contribution to the world, and my personal devotion to my own transformation. All those years of dedication to evolving my consciousness have led me to the present moment where I realize that it's not about evolving consciousness at all. What utter arrogance there is in those words. To say evolve consciousness is like saying to consciousness, don't you worry, your little head, consciousness, because I'm here to make you more conscious. Sounds rather ridiculous, doesn't it? As if consciousness doesn't know who it is, as if consciousness itself depends on me to be more, as if I were so important that the evolution of consciousness was my responsibility. Consciousness is all there is, has been, and ever will be. It already is everything and doesn't need to evolve. What's more, it can't evolve because it's already the field of infinite possibilities. Consciousness contains the very concept of evolution within it. The consciousness that dwells within me, or to put it another way, that little bit of consciousness that expresses itself through me is a fractal of infinite consciousness, and a fractal contains everything that defines the totality of that fractal. Universal consciousness isn't separate from the individual consciousness of each person. Each person's individual consciousness is a fractal of universal consciousness. And by the very definition of a fractal, individual consciousness is already universal consciousness, containing all the possibilities of evolution and involution that can manifest through that individual person. Therefore, one can't speak of evolution where there's nothing to evolve, nor improve, nor embellish, but rather to experience. Experiencing is the reason for consciousness, if we need to give that consciousness a meaning. In reality, it has no meaning and doesn't need one. Consciousness just is. Each individual consciousness, each person with an egoic identity, is individualized in an individual with certain characteristics and limitations, so that universal consciousness can experience itself through them. And that individual consciousness also has infinite forms of expression, even from within those limitations. It's those limitations that individual consciousness imposes upon itself that help and push us towards what we've called evolution. But it isn't evolving, as we've already seen, because there's nothing to improve. Everything is created already. Rather, it's about dissolving the illusory limitations of individual consciousness in order to experience something else from another state of consciousness obtained by gradually dissolving those illusory limitations. That dissolution of individual consciousness is the dissolution of the self, of the egoic consciousness that prevent us, by definition, from accessing states of higher frequency and energetic resonance with a universal consciousness that we aspire to return to. That's what we call healing work, shadow work. Dissolving the layers of the unconscious that keep us in a certain state of vibration so that we can access different vibrational states that are accessible to that individual consciousness, and thus be able to experience different things. Therefore, our work as humans is to dissolve the self as limited and restricted consciousness, to get closer and closer to pure consciousness in its pure, full state. Dissolving the self is about seeing from where we do things. It involves knowing ourselves internally to see our unconscious patterns that give us a mold. Dissolving the self results in discarding the mold and gradually accepting the void, that intermediate and balanced state of the limiting polarities of the plane where our individual consciousness materializes. Dissolving the self, the ego, isn't about destroying it. Dissolving the self is about integrating it as part of us. It's about opening our senses to higher levels of consciousness that already exist, but that we don't see through the limiting filters of unconscious patterns. Dissolving the self consists of redefining, erasing, updating, or removing beliefs, behaviors, patterns, habits, in short, characteristics of the personality of the self that don't allow us to advance, not to evolve in consciousness itself. Dissolving the self is about removing barriers from individual consciousness so that it can access more information and integrate it. The egoic self will always be there. It doesn't dissolve or get destroyed. We simply open ourselves up. We gradually dissolve into the ethereal waters of consciousness itself, and thus we become one with consciousness, without losing our original state, but rather integrating everything we find along the way. Dissolving the self is increasing individual consciousness. It's enlarging it, each time containing more and more information and more experiences. Thank you for joining me and giving yourself to this experience. You can find all platforms for this podcast in the description, so please subscribe to the ones you like the most. Your essence is cosmic. You are a celestial being, a cosmic traveler, a vessel for the light and pure consciousness. With all my love.